It's a hard thing to admit, you know. I killed Cassie Jo Stoddart. I stabbed a 16-year-old girl to death.
Hey guys, what's up? My name is Sky Webb and I'm here to talk about a true crime story that I cannot get off my mind. But before I get started, I just want to put out a little disclaimer that I mean no harm to any of the victims or the victims' families, and I wish everybody who was hurt within this story that most peace and solace either in rest or in recovery. With that out of the way, welcome to True Crime Thursday with me. As you can see by the title, today I'm going to be talking about a pretty famous murder case, the murder of Cassie Jo Stoddart. So this murder was actually inspired by the scary movie Scream, which, if you know me, you would know that was my favorite scary movie up until I realized how many real murders are actually influenced by that movie. Like, there's an insane amount. It's definitely way too real for me now, and this case and its motives are eerily similar to like the fourth Scream movie, so it's just like, yikes. Cassie Jo Stoddart was born in 1989 and she had two siblings, a younger brother and an older sister. So her and her brother both lived with their grandparents, and they lived in a very small, very simple town called Pocatello, and that was in Idaho. So of course she attended Pocatello High School, and that's actually where she met her boyfriend, Matt Beckham. So in 2006, Cassie was 16 years old, she had tons of friends, she had really good grades, she was like a straight A student. She had just started seeing her boyfriend Matt, and they'd been together for about 5 months and they were going steady. Life was just good for Cassie in 2006. She was super determined to buy herself a car. She was obviously 16, she wanted a car, she wanted to be able to drive, and so she would take a lot of babysitting jobs, a lot of house sitting jobs, any jobs that were sort of around the house that she could help people out with and that she could make a little bit of extra money with. So her aunt and her uncle, they lived pretty close by, and they asked her, hey, would you mind like house sitting the house while we go out of town? It would only be for the weekend. We just want someone to look after the animals, make sure they're being like looked after and fed or whatever. And of course Cassie was like, yes, of course I would, I'd love to. And she asked if she could bring her boyfriend, or her boyfriend could visit and, you know, like come over while she was looking after the animals. No one else was going to be there. She didn't really want to be there by herself. And her aunt was like, yeah, of course, it's fine. She had good grades. She was like really respectable, very trustworthy. She didn't have a reputation of being like sneaky or being sly or throwing parties or anything like that. So there was a lot of trust, and she was like, yeah, of course, no worries. So September 20th, 2006, that weekend, Cassie got her mum to drive her over to her aunt and uncle's house. It was a little bit of a hassle to get to just because it was kind of far away and it was a little bit more remote than where Cassie lived herself, so it was just like, seemed like a lot of effort, but it really wasn't that much effort. And then that night Matt came to join her. So they decided they were just going to watch movies, and then Matt suggested bringing over some mutual friends of theirs. There was these two guys that they were sort of closer to Matt than they were to her. One of the guys had a bit of a crush on Cassie, but it was like nothing big, and she didn't really feel comfortable with them coming over because, as I said, she was a really good girl and she was very big on trust and responsibility, and as far as she was concerned, she only had permission to have her boyfriend there, to have Matt there, not to have two extra friends. And so she felt really weird about it, but Matt sort of insisted. And so she ended up giving in and just saying, all right, they can come. So Brian Draper and Torey Adamkick, I can't pronounce names, moving on. They were both a year younger than Cassie, and they both ended up coming over to watch movies. Matt said it was just gonna be chill. They were all gonna just have a movie night, like no party, no nothing. But once they arrived, they didn't really stay too long. They kept complaining that they were bored. They thought that it was going to be a party, like a house party or more of a gathering. And they kept saying like, why would we want to watch a movie? We could just go watch a movie at the movies. And so that's what they did. They said they were going to go watch a movie at the movie theater instead. And Cassie was like cheering on the inside for this. She was like, oh, okay, sorry. Yes, like that was good for Cassie. She didn't want them in the house. She felt awkward having them there. She felt like she was breaking the rules, which is something she didn't really do. And now she got to spend time, alone time, with her boyfriend and have a nice night watching movies together. So things were looking up in Cassie's eyes. Then about 15 minutes after the boys had left for the movie theater, the power in the house went off. And both Cassie and Matt were thinking rationally, like, it's no big deal, it's just the power, whatever. But Cassie was kind of freaking out. She was super spooked by the fact that there was no power. It was this big house that she was like house sitting. It was kind of unfamiliar, like she didn't live there, and it just felt spooky. There was cats and dogs that she was looking after that were making noise and barking, and she couldn't really see, and it just spooked the shit out of her. So because they were kind of creeped out and didn't know where anything was, and it was just like a weird situation, instead of trying to figure out how to turn the power back on or looking at the power box, they just decided to stay put and hope that eventually the lights would go on. They just assumed it was like a street-wide blackout and it'd be fixed soon. And sure enough, a couple of minutes later, the power did partially turn back on, so some of the lights would come on. Not everything was entirely working. The power wasn't fully like restored, but it was enough for them to sort of rest easy, knowing like, oh, someone must be fixing it. It's gonna get better from here, you know what I mean? Cassie was still a little bit spooked, and so Matt called up his mum and basically said, look, the power's gone out. Cassie's kind of freaked out. She's house sitting tonight. Would it be okay if I just stay with her for tonight for like emotional comfort, support, nothing weird? I understand you're not okay with it, but she's just freaked out. I just want to be there for her. And his mum said, no, I'm sorry, that's inappropriate. You're too young to spend the night with your girlfriend. I just want to put out like a little PSA that if your 15, 16, 17-year-old like daughter or son has a boyfriend or a girlfriend, they're already fucking. Like, they're already fucking, I promise you. And if they're not, they're going to, whether or not you let them do it in the safety of their own bed. And especially if they just want to be there to like comfort each other emotionally, like just support that, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, okay, thanks. That's my 2 cents. Back to the main program. So at this point, Matt was feeling pretty uncomfortable about the situation because the dogs were barking, the power was still partially out, and it was just like a really bad vibe in the house. It just didn't feel right for some reason. So at this point, Matt's mum had come to pick him up, and so he tried asking her again and explained to her, look, the power's gone out, the dogs are barking, the cats are all running around, she can't really see, she just feels really creeped out, it's a bad vibe, can I just stay here to support her emotionally? I'm worried about her. And again, his mum said, no, I'm sorry, it's inappropriate. She did though offer to have Cassie come stay at their house. She said it's absolutely fine for her to come sleep on the couch and she'll bring her back in the morning and she can look after the dogs in the house then, like it's fine, I don't mind you coming with us. And props to her for trying to like negotiate. She wasn't just gonna leave Cassie high and dry, but Cassie felt like she had a responsibility to be there for the entire night because she had promised that she would be there for the whole weekend, and she was getting paid for this. She felt like it was her responsibility and she couldn't just walk out, because imagine she came back in the morning and the dogs and cats had like run amok and like fucked up the house. She would have felt really guilty and bad. And as I said, she was big on responsibility. She really wanted to be like trusted and responsible. And so she said thanks but no thanks, and she stayed, and Matt and his mum drove off. So Cassie sat up on the couch another time and she just planned on watching movies until she fell asleep. I think she was gonna sleep on the couch, like that was sort of her plan. She didn't really feel safe walking around the house just because it was big and creepy, and so she just chilled on the lounge. But then the lights started flickering. They were turning on and off, on and off. They were turning on and on and on and on and on and on and off. They were turning on and off. So at this point she was genuinely scared because she was all by herself and the lights hadn't just fully gone off. They were like, you know what I mean? And that carried on for a couple of minutes until eventually they went out all together, and she decided to just stay put, stay exactly where she was, because she felt really uncomfortable about going around the house. But at this point, somebody had already entered the house and they were in there with Cassie. She was attacked and she was stabbed approximately 30 times, 12 of those times creating wounds that were considered to be fatal, and Cassie was killed. So fast forward to the end of the weekend, and the aunt and uncle and their daughter, so Cassie's cousin, I love how long that took my brain, they arrived home. And so Cassie's cousin, who was only 13 at the time, she entered the house first, and she walked into the living room to find Cassie sprawled out on the floor in a pool of blood, having been stabbed 30 something times and was obviously dead. And so her cousin screamed her little heart out, and the rest of the family came running in, all had the same sort of reaction of just terror and screaming. And then the police were called. Police immediately dismissed any idea of it being a robbery or something along those lines where it's sort of randomly picked. And the reason they did this is because all of the belongings were exactly where they were when they left. Like, nothing had been touched, nothing had been stolen, nothing had been rummaged through. It was all just left completely alone. The only thing that looks like something had happened, obviously, was Cassie. Police also came to the conclusion that Cassie might have let whoever it is into the house for the fact that there was no signs of forced entry anywhere around the house. So they assumed it must have been someone that Cassie had let in and who had attacked her. So obviously the first person they want to talk to is the boyfriend. They want to talk to Matt, and so they go and visit him for some interviewing. Police were actually surprised when they spoke to Matt because they expected him to be very emotional about this situation. It's obviously quite a horrific attack to be stabbed so many times and to be so young, and it was really horrific. And so they expected quite a lot from Matt, but he really didn't show any signs of emotion at all. He didn't seem distressed or upset or confused or even shocked. He didn't cry, he didn't get angry. He was just very, very abnormally calm. It seemed really weird, especially after he had recounted the story and claimed to be so worried and concerned that Cassie was like scared from the lights turning on and off. And they sort of thought, well, if he's that concerned for her, then wouldn't he be overly emotionally concerned now that she's been murdered? No? Anyway, he told them what had happened, and he said that when he and his mum left, he called up Torey and Brian, the friends that had left earlier, and he was like,
what are you guys doing? Do you want to hang out? Do you still want to catch a movie?
And they were really quiet. They were whispering on the phone because they were already in the movie theater, already watching something. And so he was like,
all right, cool, talk to you guys tomorrow.
And then he and Torey met up the next day to hang out. And so the next day he called Cassie to check in with her and didn't get a response. And so he claims he didn't get a response from her for the entire rest of the weekend. So now police want to talk to Brian and Torey to see what they were doing, if they were really at the movies, what had happened with them basically. And so they recounted the night and they explained that they were just kind of bored. They thought it was going to be a house party and it wasn't, and so they left to go see a movie. And they had little ticket like stub things, like where the ticket's been ripped, to watch Holes. How fucking good is Holes? That's such a fucking good movie. But apparently they had gone and watched Holes that night, and so the police were like, all right, solid, they've got an alibi, let's move on. At this point, the police didn't have a whole lot of evidence, and so they brought all three boys in for questioning to see if there was anything in their story where they could pull like clues from to determine who else might have been there or what else might have happened that night. So they strapped Matt up to a polygraph machine to do a polygraph test, and they say to him, did you have anything to do with Cassie Stoddart's death or murder? And he said, no, I didn't. Passed the test with flying colours, absolutely no issues. And so they were like, okay, cool, next. So they asked Brian, what did you do that night? And he's like,
yeah, we went and saw a movie.
They were like, awesome, what movie did you watch? He was like,
I don't remember. It was like some horror movie. Wasn't really good. I don't really remember.
So they're like, do you remember who was in it or what happened in it or anything to do with it? He was like,
nah, I don't really remember. I just remember thinking it was really boring. I was really bored the whole time, so I didn't really pay attention. It was just really boring, and I don't really know. I don't really remember because it was really boring.
So straight away, police were like, what? Both Brian and Torey were super into movies. Like, they were complete film fanatics, absolute movie buffs. And so you would think, after all the bragging that they had done about knowing everything about movies and being such like high movie critics, that they would have had a little more to say about this horror movie, that they loved horror movies, like, more than just, oh, I don't know, it was boring. That was just red flag. 1000%. So police then decided to investigate the whole movie thing a little further. They went to the theater and interviewed the like ticket booth lady girl thing. She's not a thing, I'm sorry. And as it turns out, the girl actually went to school with the boys and with Cassie, and she was like, yeah, I know them. They definitely weren't here because, like, I know them. I remember had they've been here because I'm the one that let everyone in. And so police were like, there goes their alibi. What the hell? So now Brian comes in for questioning again, and this time he just starts crying before they've really even said anything. He just starts bawling his eyes out, and police are like, okay, this is a progression of some kind. We don't know what yet, but it's something. So he basically tells investigators that while they were all at Cassie's aunt and uncle's house, he snuck away to the bathroom, and before he came back, he went and unlocked the back door so that he could sneak in later. So then once they had left, him and Torey had left to go watch a movie, they actually went to the backyard where they got all dressed up in masks and costumes. They had knives, like the whole shebang, and they were planning on pranking Cassie and Matt, like scaring the absolute shit out of them, basically. And so they let themselves back in through the back door, which they'd left open. They went down to the basement and basically just hung out in the basement for ages, waiting for the right time to prank them, I guess. That's when they saw the power box, and so they were like, this could improve our prank. They decided to turn the lights on and off and like mess with the power, hoping that Cassie or Matt or both would go down to the power box to try and like turn it back on, because most people would. I feel like if the power went out here, my boyfriend would definitely go check it out. I probably wouldn't, not because I'd be scared, but I'm just like a lazy fat fuck. So when they didn't, they kind of just waited it out. They didn't want to ruin the prank. They thought it was going to be great, or at least this is what Brian was telling investigators. So they waited until Matt left, and then once he left, they started fucking with the power again. Cassie still didn't come down, and so they decided to just go up there and prank her. At this point, Brian claims that Torey started getting really amped up. He started getting really worked up and angry for no apparent reason, and was just like visibly shakingly angry, saying,
I'm gonna kill her, I've gotta kill her, I have to kill her, like I have to kill her.
And Brian was basically saying he thought it was still a prank and it was like a role-playing thing, but it wasn't. This story very suddenly goes from being a prank to being murder. They went up there and they stabbed her 30 times, and Brian claimed that Torey had done the entire thing. Torey had stabbed her, Torey had killed her, and then later Brian confessed to stabbing her between 1 to 3 times, purely because Torey had told him to. And Brian was so scared of Torey and how angry he had suddenly gotten, and the fact he was killing their friend, that he felt if he didn't, he would be hurt instead, and so he stabbed Cassie as well. At least this is what he said in his original confession. After that, they took all of the evidence, like their costumes, their masks, the knives, their shoes, the gloves, anything like that, and they went and buried them in the woods. So Brian told investigators that he would take them to this spot in the woods where they had buried everything, and they would be able to dig it all up and see that he was telling the truth and that he had no part in this. And so that's what they did. They went and undug it all. I don't know if that's a word, but they went and buried it up. Dug it up. They went and digged it up. That didn't sound right either. They went and dug. It is dug. Point is, they got the evidence, and they actually did find quite a lot. There was boots, there was gloves, there was masks, there was costumes, there was an abundance of knives. There was small knives, big knives, daggers, like crazy amount of knives, and there was also tapes. So at this point, investigators discovered that the two boys, Brian and Torey, had actually taped the entire night, and they had taped themselves sitting there basically saying,
these are the list of people we want to kill. Tonight we're going to kill Cassie, these are the ways we could kill her and want to kill her. I am so excited to kill her.
And this is all on tape. They even sat there and apologized to her family and said,
And yeah, I'm really sorry to Cassie's family, but this has to be done. Everyone has to make sacrifices. Like, we have to kill her.
and so at this point, the tapes proved that Brian was not just like an innocent bystander who thought it was a prank. He was very clearly involved in this, as he was seen on the tapes being like, I'm so excited to kill her. And then Torey, after being caught, he now claimed basically the same thing as Brian, that
No, it wasn't me. I thought it was a prank. It was all Brian. Brian's the one who stabbed her. Brian's the one that killed her. It's all a misunderstanding. I thought it was a prank.
they basically just threw each other under the bus and completely tried to blame the other one, despite there being a tape of both of them clearly happy to be there. So on the 27th of December 2006, both boys were arrested for Cassie's murder. They both went to trial, but were trialed separately, and they both basically just did the exact same thing of throwing each other under the bus. That was like their whole defense. They both claimed that the videotape in which they had basically like proven that everything was premeditated, they claimed that that was all acting and part of this movie they were trying to make. They said that they were trying to make a horror movie, and it was all acting, none of it was real. The defense said it didn't represent how they truly act, feel, or think, and it was just part of a movie. They were just playing roles, they were playing a part. So in Torey's trial, his defense basically was to just point the finger at Brian the entire time, and this was made super easy for him because Cassie's DNA was found on one glove, one knife, and both of those belonged to Brian. They had Brian's DNA on it as well, and Torey didn't, and so he was able to sort of step back and say, it wasn't me, it was all him.
They weren't the murder and the conspiracy.
Yeah.
That was Brian. It must be harder because you're innocent to be facing it.
Yeah, I guess.
As well as that, Brian's DNA was actually found underneath Cassie's fingernails on both hands, and none of Torey's DNA was found there. So that goes to show that there was some sort of struggle between Cassie and Brian that Torey just was not a part of. And so that helped him also claim innocence, that no, I was just standing there, I was afraid of Brian. On the videotape, it also demonstrated Brian yelling out after the murder had been committed, I killed Cassie. And his defense sort of owned in on the fact that he said, I killed Cassie, not we killed Cassie, not we did it, not you and I, nothing like that. It was I killed Cassie. And they really like zeroed in on that fact. So despite Torey's defense, he was still found guilty, and so was Brian. On the 17th of April 2007, Brian Draper was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for first-degree murder, and he was also convicted with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder as well. And then on the 8th of June 2007, Torey Adamick was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for first-degree murder, and he was also convicted of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder as well. But of course, both boys immediately appealed these convictions. They were not happy with the result at all. So in Brian's appeal, they focused on the fact that when he first came in to confess what had happened, which was proved to all be lies because he obviously had a lot more to do with the murder than what he originally came forward with, they focused on the fact that he had been interviewed by investigators without his parents' presence. So because he's underage, for his confession to mean anything or to be upheld in court, his parents need to be present at the time he gives the confession. But because he had actually signed a waiver before being interviewed and before confessing, they were very sure that he was like acutely aware of what he was doing and what he was saying. He was absolutely certain of his confession, and so the court actually threw out his appeal, which I'm surprised by, but I think they would have had enough evidence to convict him regardless of that original confession. So all it would have done is like drag the trial out, but regardless, he didn't win, so it doesn't matter. Torey's appeal, however, focused on the fact that he had not confessed to anything. He completely claimed innocent right up until the end. He still does even to this day. And he focused on the fact that Brian had actually admitted to stabbing her 1 to 3 times, whereas Torey had never admitted to stabbing her whatsoever. He claimed that there was no evidence supporting the fact that he had hurt or murdered Cassie, and that even on the tape recording, there was nothing to demonstrate real, true intent of hurting or committing murder. Along with that, he also tried to bring up the fact that when the investigators were investigating him, they had shown up to his house with a warrant to search his belongings. On the warrant, though, there was no authorization to seize any technological devices, which means they weren't approved to take his laptop, but they did. They did take his laptop and they did search through it, and they actually found things that they could have followed up and convicted him for. They found child pornography and animal cruelty content, and so he wanted all of that to be thrown out because it was technically gathered in like illegal means, but because it didn't really have anything to do with the evidence of the actual murder case, the court basically just threw it out and were like, even though it was technically not warranted, it has nothing to do with the murder, like literally nothing to fucking do with the murder. And so that was thrown out as well. So both Torey and Brian are in prison to this day, and they've been interviewed since they've sort of grown up a little bit, and I'm definitely going to put a clip about that at the end, so make sure you just skip to the end or keep watching. That's probably a better thing to say for like me, but anyway, make sure you watch the end because I think it's very, very, very interesting to see how they've sort of grown in the last couple of years, or not grown, go see for yourself. But that is the story of the Cassie Jo Stoddart murder, a murder influenced by Scream. Let me know what you guys think of this video down in the comments below, or you can head over to my Facebook, which is skyweb with 3 B's, and let me know there. I would really, really, really love to know what you guys think about this case and whether or not you think one of them was more innocent than the other, or whether they were both just as guilty as anything. I'd love to know what you think, so please make sure to do that. Also, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you feel like it. I would really, really, really appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe so that you can see all my new videos every single Thursday. I post all about true crime. Make sure you guys are being safe out there. Do not house sit alone. Don't trust boys, ever. And most importantly, don't murder your friends to make a movie. Just pretend to murder your friends to make a movie. Okay. You don't gotta murder people to be famous. You can just be famous in regular ways. Like learn how to sing or eat a tampon. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Bye!
But that, who Torey was at that age, at 16, he still didn't commit this crime.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not saying that. He's not saying that.
I'm
He
saying
has
I made some mistakes and I learned from them.
But your mistakes weren't anything you were charged with.
I don't know, I have a lot of ambitions, and I mean, if I were to get out, I mean, I know exactly what I would do with my life, but being in here, that's all I have is just these, it feels like all I have is just to sit here and rot.
Oh, I'm not exactly sure what happened. They said I killed her. I'm not even sure if I did or not. And he sat me down and he's like, stop giving me a whole bunch of bullshit, okay? If you want my help, you have to completely be honest with me. And he taught me about how I owe a tremendous debt to you, Cassie Stoddart, and the only way that I can even start you paying that is to, first of all, to tell exactly what happened to her, and do not dishonor her in anything that you do in your life. And I've tried that. It's very hard. It's very hard. Just graphic, gruesome dreams about her dying. I would wake up in the night and I would be scared, like terrified. But I always know in the dream that I killed her, and those dreams are even worse.